Welcome to the Trumpet of the Last Few Days. I'm Stanley Farrar.
And I'm Robert Farrar.
And I am Joshua Farrar. What topics are we covering today?
That's a good question. I don't know. What topic are we covering first? We didn't talk about this. We just kind of went.
First, we didn't.
We did kind of discuss what topic
Well,
we were covering.
there's
organization.
Well, there was the Jetson. There's the Jetson law.
Yeah, but the Jetsons
New
have been
Hampshire.
off there
There's
for
the
years.
Beirut bombing.
Okay, yeah. Let's talk about the Jetson law. Let's do a throwback.
Well, they took and passed a law in New Hampshire called the Jetson law, which allows those flying cars to be able to drive on the roadways of New Hampshire, specifically for the purposes of getting back and forth to airports so they can take off and land.
Now, the problem with this is they'd be subject to security now.
Yeah, they would be.
And I don't want to have to go through the TSA every time I want to drive my car down the street.
Well,
and you know that it's an inevitable proposition. On top of that, you would have to get a flying license, and you would have to learn how to be managed by the air traffic control, and you would have to listen to air traffic control, and then you would lose your license the moment you didn't listen to air traffic control, which is going to happen in the first week, and then they would ban the whole system. Or they would have to reduce the laws.
Some of the problems.
That's just a few of many, 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 many problems.
It would have likely all the same regulation as any private aircraft.
Which is a lot.
Yes, it is. But, I mean, poor people aren't just going to be buying airplanes, so they're more likely...
And rich people aren't going to be flying their own, so nothing's going to change.
Yeah, pretty much.
Actually, some of the problems with it, besides the ones you just mentioned, airplanes don't have mufflers.
Yeah.
You have to keep everything light in order to take and keep it being able to fly. So that means that the same engine that propels it in the air has to be able to propel it on the ground. And there's no exhaust.
My car runs on jet fuel.
You know how loud an airplane is?
Yeah, I've been on more than a few of them.
And when you deal with, that most of these, like the Switchblade and various other flying cars they've got out there, use a pusher prop airplane propeller in the back to push it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have so you've got this blade spinning in the back of this thing as it goes down the road. Not a one of them could pass a car safety crash test. None of them
are
made
of light metal, don't they?
They're almost exclusively made of aluminum or fiberglass.
Death traps.
Aluminum, fiberglass, and yes, they're death traps. And when you think about it, airplanes cannot stop once they're in motion.
Sure, they can
without crashing. They've got to keep.
Okay, with that caveat in there, yeah.
All right, guys, we need to stop, and we need to stop fast. I'm pointing her down.
So, what do you do about traffic jams in the air?
You circle just
if
like
everybody's driving
over airports.
Yeah, but you get cut off with an airplane, you can't hit the brakes.
It's true.
Do an aileron roll.
So you've got you're going to have people cutting off, dodging each other, and flying into another aircraft.
I mean, obviously, Obviously, they need to give everyone 25 millimeter machine guns so that they can shoot down whoever cuts them off.
Do an aileron roll.
Now I have heard it suggested that they could use rotor-powered craft.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the only kind of rotor-type craft that they've designed so far that operate in a fashion that a person who could drive a car could drive are basically overgrown drones.
Yeah.
I'm
And
sorry,
they come with their own
So
problems.
they're drone.
I'm sorry, but the only flying car that we need is one with an afterburner.
Now, clearly, they need to
Jet-powered,
finish developing flying
But
saucers. So when everyone has their own flying saucer, this won't be an issue. You can just hover there if you can't go forward.
Now hovercrafts would be an option, but hovercrafts aren't street legal either because they've got an airplane engine on them.
It's really going to end up like a novelty, like these aquatic cars that already exist.
That were really big in the 50s?
Yeah,
they were never big. They were
60s, okay. Yeah.
They were a novelty then, they're a novelty now.
They were more common then.
More common, I'd agree with.
Got a bunch of people killed recently.
Not surprising.
With one of those ducks out in the lake filled with water and sank.
That was a year ago.
Well, it's the same basic concept. Yeah, yeah, but that's a same basic concept. What made that a bad boat made it also the fact that what made it able to float made it a bad vehicle, and what made it
a bad vehicle made it a usable boat.
Right. And you're running into the same thing with these flying cars. What makes them a good at flying makes them a lousy car, and what would make them a good car would make them where they couldn't fly.
So the solution to this is to invent transformers, because they're more than meets the eye.
Now, I would say that the only technology that's even close to being practical in this field would be the hover bikes.
Mm-hmm. And those look pretty cool. But they are also a gimmick.
Yeah. But they're a gimmick. There's no doubt about it.
They look kind of like a drone, but with a bike center.
Uh-huh. That's exactly what they are. They're a drone with a bike. Until the motor goes out.
And the wind's really picking up over there, isn't it?
But it's not picking him up.
Yeah, it is.
Which is good.
I take it you just got a blast of air.
Oh, yeah.
So, you guys heard about what happened in Beirut, right?
Yeah.
Anybody want to tell the public audience? I mean,
Crystal
I'm sure
fertilizer went boom. Specifically, 2,750 tons of it.
Yeah, OKC on a grand scale.
Yeah. In fact, it had the force of a nuclear bomb.
So far,
a little less than Texas City.
They've counted over 150 people dead. And Lebanon's economy in shambles.
Not surprising after that.
Well, the buildings are going to have to be devastated and torn down and rebuilt.
So it turns out that the fertilizer, it was, I can't remember the exact substance, it was something nitrate. But it was ammonium nitrate. So it was part of a shipment of a last ditch effort of a Ukrainian company back in 2013, November 2013, to sort of prevent their company from going bankrupt. Their shipping vessel, however, was deemed unseaworthy by the time it arrived in Beirut and was impounded at the harbor. And then the company went bankrupt, and they just abandoned everything, and so all of that potassium, no, not potassium nitrate, it was ammonium nitrate, was moved into a warehouse and stored there for the past 6 years. And they tried to get it removed, but were blocked by their own government no less than 6 times.
One thing that gets me on the situation is how they ended up storing fireworks in the same warehouse.
Probably confiscated it from somewhere. The same reason why the ammonium nitrate was there.
Yeah, but you don't store flammable objects with something that can go boom.
Well, you store fireworks with other fireworks. Isn't that storing flammable objects with things that can go boom?
It's a little different. It's a little bit different.
It's really not.
Something that can blow up with the force of a
and
nuclear
bomb. When you have 2,750 tons of a substance, you're limited in your options of where to store it.
I
Very.
think
that what gets me is that ammonia nitrate is not as easy to set off as some other types of fertilizers are.
It's not, but it's not unheard of either. Ammonium nitrate specifically is used not only as a fertilizer, but it's also used as mining explosives.
True, it's also a major chemical in gun cotton.
Yeah. And it's highly reactive to water. You get it wet, it goes up.
So which shipping that thing is not great either.
Taking and storing it by the harbor isn't a bright idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Lebanon's economy was estimated to contract 12% because of the coronavirus. Now it's estimated to contract 20 to 25%.
Well, I think that this is an object lesson. And it's not an object lesson of what many people think. It's not an object lesson of not storing ammonium nitrate in a warehouse by the harbor. That's not the point. The point is that bureaucracy costs lives. They tried to get rid of this thing multiple times, only to be blocked by red tape.
I mean, what's the purpose of blocking?
Well,
the purpose of blocking it could depend on the circumstance. It could be because they don't think they've got the space. It's because they think that they can't pay the people to move it. It could be because the process of moving it could potentially hurt someone's job. It could be that they're trying to cover up the fact that it's there in the first place, because it being there in the first place could cost someone their job because they've been neglecting it for the past 6 years. It's a lot of different reasons that it could be, but all of them stem back to bureaucracy.
Well, now there's a movement.
Oh, they may have even forgot it was there.
Based on the records of when they were informed of all of it, the guy who just took charge of the department that's supposed to handle this sort of thing took charge this year, and he said he just found out about it after the incident, which is believable because it was probably buried.
That is believable.
But with how often they tried to get rid of it, I don't think you can just pass it off and say no one knew about it. Because clearly they did, or the paper trail of them trying to get rid of it wouldn't have existed.
Well, now there's
the problem is did the right people know about it?
The problem is the people that needed to know about it probably knew about it but didn't care. Because blocking the process gives them some sort of feeling of power, as all bureaucrats are. Ever dealt with a homeowner association? Just as bad.
Well, there's a movement in Lebanon to return French control over the country. Now, we can easily go into why that's a terrible idea.
It is a very terrible idea. But it's better than it being in Muslim control.
Oh, it won't change. It'll still be a Muslim country. France doesn't care about that.
A Muslim country and a Muslim country by law are two different things. A Muslim country by statistics versus a Muslim country by requirement.
But they won't crack down on Sharia. But
because it's France, probably not. They should.
They know that it was the government was why the incident happened in the first place. And yet they want to return to France, which is all about big government? That seems really questionable.
And France is one of the most corrupt governments in Europe. Or in West Europe.
Well, actually, you name the country in the EU, and they're pretty well corrupt.
Yeah, but you've got a scale of those that are corrupt, but not as corrupt as the super corrupt ones.
Where do you fall on
the whole point of design... The whole point of developing the EU in the first place, when France thought it up, and France was the one that thought it up, was so they could take and push America out of being the world economic superpower and reclaim superpower status themselves. They basically thought they'd rule Europe when they took and organized the EU.
What happens when you combine...
Now Germany rules it. Ironic.
So what happens when you combine a bunch of socialist countries? You get a bunch of infighting and a weak economy.
Yeah.
The USSR.
Or Greece.
But everyone speaks a different language.
Interestingly enough, they have created They have created a written language for Europe, right? That's designed to be readable and understandable by anyone who understands a European language. And it's kind of weird because it's almost like every third word is English, French, and German in that order. And it doesn't make sense why it makes sense, but it makes sense when you read it.
I take it you've read it.
I have.
That sounds insane, you know that.
Yeah.
Sounds cool to me.
I'm sure there's a lot that's lost in context. But for some reason it's legible. It's weird, but it's legible.
I bet English is the cornerstone because German's related to English and French is related to English, but they're not related to each other.
Yeah. That's the advantage of having a mongrel language like English.
Yeah.
But I suppose
versatility.
That's got to be. But the EU has been a bad idea from the very beginning.
Yeah, so is NATO. That doesn't stop them from doing it.
The whole purpose for NATO. Technically, the whole purpose of NATO ceased in 1989.
Yeah.
When the Soviet Union fell.
But let's be honest, the purpose for NATO is the current purpose for NATO is to keep the United States in check. That's why it exists.
That may be the current purpose, but that wasn't its original purpose. Its original purpose was to protect European countries from the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
So once the Soviet Union collapsed, there was no reason for it.
But the president's withdrawn troops from Germany because they weren't meeting their NATO commitment.
It may also be to help prepare for a conflict with China.
Speaking of China, by the way, has anyone ever heard of Kashmir? And I'm not referring to any clothing.
No.
Okay. They make a great wool.
High quality stuff there.
In northern
Yeah,
India,
it is.
in northern India, right next to the region called Ladakh, which happens to be the region that India is currently disputing with China over. Right next to it are two regions called Kashmir and Jammu. And Kashmir is there's currently a dispute taking place between India and Pakistan, which Pakistan and China call themselves the Iron Brothers, and have had close diplomatic ties for a long time. Well, part of Kashmir
There won't be a.
part of Kashmir lies on the Pakistan side. Part of Kashmir, the other part lies on the Indian side. Well, a year ago, prior to a year ago, India had given Kashmir a special autonomous status, kind of like Hong Kong had in China.
Mm-hmm.
And then a year ago, they rescinded that and have started attempting to Indianize the territory. Well, China, once the whole border situation flared up, pointed to Kashmir and was like, "Ha, you can't call us the aggressors. Look what you did to Kashmir," as if that excused their encroaching on the Indian border.
Well, China, you're not going to have a conflict between India and China and Pakistan not get involved.
Yeah, you won't.
Kashmir is just an excuse.
It is, but it's their number one reason to get into a war with India, because they rescinded the autonomy of Kashmir, and Kashmir is a predominantly Muslim territory, and Pakistan kind of views itself as the watchdog of the Indian Muslim.
Pakistan views itself as the watchdog for true Islam.
It doesn't care about the Uyghurs, though.
No, but it took and embraced the Taliban when they were driven out of Afghanistan. They also embraced Al Qaeda.
But the interesting thing about Pakistan is they rescinded Kashmir's autonomy back in 1963.
That's a long time ago.
So their issue isn't with getting rid of Kashmir's autonomy. Their issue is
who gets to do it.
They're turning them Hindu instead of letting them stay Muslim.
Ah, the War of the Pagans.
Yep.
That's exactly what it is. It's a pagan war.
Well, except that war hasn't officially broken out yet, although there has been mortar shelling across the line.
Pagan on pagan.
Well, Pakistan
combat.
has fired on India. India's fired on Pakistan. China's fired on India, and India's fired on them.
No, they haven't fired on each other. India and China.
They haven't?
No, it was melee combat, because the rules of engagement stated
melee combat.
Yeah, it was melee combat that 40 people got.
Are we talking?
40 people got killed with clubs.
Well, yeah, you're talking like bats with nails through them, metal poles, that sort of thing.
Wow, they're going classic.
Street gang type fighting.
Yes.
Street gang type fighting.
The thing is, China's blaming India for that, by the way, saying that India encroached on their lines, even though India is into historically. China's into historically Indian territory right now, but it was India's fault.
Well, China always claims an area, then moves into it, and then when the other country takes and tries to push them out, they say, "Hey, they invaded our territory."
Yeah.
They're doing the same thing with the South China Sea.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting thing is, if war breaks out, it may very well be Pakistan that kicks it all off, because they've openly said to the UN that war is on the table for them. And if Pakistan goes in, well, why would China not go in? That's the chance to take Ladakh.
The majority of the Indians already want a war with China.
Yeah, a recent poll came out saying 59% of Indians want war with China. Now, admittedly, you have to take the polling methods into account. It was primarily rural people who said that.
Uh-huh.
And they only polled 12,000 people in a country of over 1 billion. But it's still interesting, because it also is a largely rural country.
Of course, China will lie through its teeth in order to take and make themselves seem bigger and better anyway. After all, look at their naval poster they posted, taking and bragging about their People's Republic Navy, and it had U.S. Aircraft carriers and British aircraft carriers and French aircraft carriers from a NATO
carrier group.
Sailing group, carrier group in the South China Sea. It wasn't even their ships.
They're advertising the Pacific War Games as their own fleet. Oh, man.
It was for their Thanking the Military Day.
Yeah, for their Thanking the Military Day. They got a lot of backlash from that online. People say, "Oh, so you're going to thank the U.S. Navy for are you?"
For keeping your country safe? Yeah.
They ran a poll in China asking who would you support in a war between the U.S. and China, and the majority of Chinese said the U.S. Yes, 2018.
Oh, the irony.
Is it any wonder that the Chinese government has got such a chip on its shoulder right now?
They're slipping, and they know it.
Not to mention the fact that, according to Chinese tradition and their superstitions, if it snows in the summertime, it's a sign the government is persecuting the innocent. And it snowed in Beijing.
Oh, my.
They tried to say, "Oh, well, it wasn't snow, it was a light hail." No, it was snow. It was just fluttering down. Just pretty as you please. So the people are looking at it that their country is taking and persecuting the innocent, and all the signs are there.
Yeah.
And they keep locking down more and more, trying to take away more and more freedoms, while they're being flooded out in one section of China, being dried out.
Yeah, there's a drought
from a
in the
drought
north
in
and
another
floods in the
section of
south.
China. They're losing. Their grain is rotting in its bins from a fungus that they're trying to hide from the people.
And there's a
They
new
banned
virus out that's
cameras
spreading as well. Not coronavirus, a new one.
As well as a bubonic plague outbreak in Inner Mongolia.
And coronavirus is starting to make an upsurgence as well.
Yeah.
And you're right, actually, pneumonic plague, not just bubonic, pneumonic,
They're the same
is making
bacteria.
an upsurgence in China.
They're the same bacteria.
Same bacteria, but one's airborne. With the fact that bubonic has to be transmitted by a parasitic bite, but pneumonic is airborne, it spreads more easily. And they've got both kinds.
China's got it.
It's like everything that could go wrong, they've got happening to them right now, and they're picking a war with the world.
I don't know. Maybe they looked at the United States and saw that it was a war that brought us out of the Great Depression, and they're trying to replicate it. I mean, look how bad things were for the U.S. back then. You had the Dust Bowl, you had wildfires, you had the Spanish flu.
We had half the world on our side.
That's true. Mm-hmm. They're even trying to make enemies out of their friends.
Yeah.
They're picking trouble with North Korea and Russia. They're some of their oldest allies there are.
Yeah.
Yet they don't have sense enough to know that, well, it's a proven fact that when people take and reject God and take a stand against God and anything to do with him, that they lose a great deal of wisdom.
Well, wisdom of the world is foolishness to God.
And desperate people lash out.
Mm-hmm.
And let's be honest, if you look at their economy, they're desperate. They're really desperate.
Speaking of China, did you hear about that new executive order that was passed a couple days ago?
Yeah.
The TikTok?
It wasn't limited to TikTok. TikTok is involved under the umbrella of it, but it is far bigger than TikTok. And it's basically saying that no company in the United States is able to have a direct business relationship with any company in China. And if any Chinese subsidiary wishes to operate in America, they have to sell their properties to an American-based company. Now, and they've got 45 days to comply, or sanctions will be imposed on the companies. Now, this is not a new tactic, mind you. Believe it or not, China has been doing this to all American companies for years. Specifically, if people don't know about it, Blizzard. Blizzard runs a great deal of... Activision Blizzard is a huge gaming company that is well known for games along the lines of Call of Duty and its biggest title, World of Warcraft. Now,
well as Overwatch.
Now, as well as Overwatch and Hearthstone. Overwatch and Hearthstone are specifically ones because they were categorized for a while as esports. Hearthstone more specifically, where the company cannot run its esports division in China, so they had to sell the rights to run it to a Chinese company with an agreement of royalties, where a Chinese company completely runs and operates it in China. That is how it functions. And many other game companies that have a sports center are affected the same way. Namely, games like StarCraft, also owned by Blizzard, and League of Legends, which, granted, is currently owned by the Chinese company Tencent, which is also being affected by this executive order in their social media app called WeChat that is now going to be banned in the United States.
Well, they were named by name.
Yes, they were.
Tencent was named by a name in that executive order.
Yes.
The thing is, what's to stop the Chinese company from just controlling them from controlling the American companies from a distance?
Money. It becomes no longer profitable.
And yet, American companies still
They're
do
talking
it.
about move.
American companies don't do it very well.
They're
There's a reason why they break apart.
they're looking at moving the headquarters for TikTok to London.
And Britain has its own issues with Chinese apps and Chinese companies.
And Britain itself is discussing banning TikTok because of it being a spy program.
Well, if that would kind of make their move to London a moot point.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, because they weren't going to sell it to them. They were just going to take and move their headquarters there.
But personally,
China was still going to be in charge.
Personally, I don't believe the Chinese companies themselves are inherently evil. I think they are core capitalism, but they are regulated by China, so they have to abide by certain Chinese rules, like, say, giving all the information they collect for their own business to China. Facebook does the same type of spying on you as TikTok. It's not a new tactic, it's not a new thing, and it's not uncommon. Facebook, however, is not required by the United States government to give all of the data they steal from you to it. Chinese companies are.
Well, Google takes and spies on you constantly.
Oh, yeah, all the time. And
in fact, one of the reasons why we have to take and state that these videos aren't for children is because YouTube was marketing for specific things for children and ended up violating the law, despite the fact that you're not supposed to be under 13 to have a YouTube account.
Yeah.
So, thank you for joining us for today's episode.
And that was
If
fast.
this episode made you feel warm, cuddly, and safe, then we have failed in our mission.
If this episode, however, has made you paranoid and you check around every corner, then you're moving in the right direction. But remember, you're never safe.
Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. So, if you like what you saw
today,
then feel free to hit the like and subscribe buttons as well as ringing the bell. And remember, tinnitus is a medical problem. If you continue to hear the bell, seek medical assistance.
Except tinnitus is not about hearing a bell, it's about hearing a ringing sound. It's normally a solid tone. It's not the jangling that you get from a bell.
So, if you disagree with us, then feel free to leave a comment or hit the thumbs down button.
And if you're a doctor who knows specifics about tinnitus, go ahead and correct us.
Otherwise, accept all comments. We will, even if they disagree with us. We are happy to argue with just about anyone. And we might even invite you on the program to argue it out live.
Well, not live. We edit this.
Yeah, we do.
Well, that's true.
So, see you next time.